Hello, everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser player ratings with Bickler and myself, Timucin. Bickler, what's happening?
What's going on?
Not much, man. In a day where we played a derby game, but the conversation after the game is more like, do you want Everton to go down or no? So what does that tell you about the game?
Yeah, I think that game probably kicked a lot of people off the fence too, I would imagine.
I think it did. I think a lot of people that were on the fence, and I don't care if you're like for Liverpool going down or against it. I am now. Before I was for Burnley. Now that Sean Douche is out of there, I'm rooting for Burnley to stay up. So it would be a double bonus for me if indeed it did happen. I can see why people wouldn't want him to, but I don't think it shows like the level of fan you are and all that kind of BS that it's made out to be. So overall for the game, what is your take? And then we'll go into the specifics with like player ratings one by one.
Man, I think my take is for the first time in a long time, I feel like Klopp nailed every single substitution in a way that really impacted the match too. That's probably my overall takeaway. I mean, it felt like a proper derby match, which I think none of us were really expecting. But they came out, it's two feathers of the same shit bird. We played a Manchester United team that's terrible, and we played an Everton team that was terrible. So why did those first halves look so different? It's because one has a ton of quality and doesn't give a shit. The other one is overpaid for quality it doesn't have, but at least gave a shit because it was a war of the city. You know what I mean? I think there's some pride and some actual genuine hatred that probably comes off street level that you don't get in the Manchester United game. So even though we kind of started slow and, I think it was more physical and frustrating first half, I think the quality won out over time. But I really think it had to do with those substitutions.
Yeah, the subs were big. I feel like the early goal against United, I almost were afraid the United game was going to be similar to this, to be honest with you. But the early goal, I think if we got an early goal in this game, you kind of saw the last 15, 20 minutes. I think we would have seen that for like 70 or 80. So let me ask you this, though, before we get into the ratings. If this is all Everton got, and really this is probably like the best they've played or the hardest they've played, let's say, in a while, what does that say for their chances of staying up? And they
I don't see it. I don't think they're going to stay up. I think they'll probably go down.
Not that Burnley looks great, I guess, but yeah, when you look at the fixtures and stuff like that, we'll probably delve into this a lot more in tomorrow's podcast with Gally, and then we'll kind of like look ahead to the Champions League matchup during the week. But let's start with the ratings. Alisson, I would have probably had him at a 7 or an 8, but that shithousery that he did by like falling on the ball by itself gets him close to a freaking 10, but I give him a 9. I thought it was exceptional.
Yeah, I think it was an 8 for me. He didn't have a whole lot to do, but he gets at least a full point for that. It was amazing. Amazing. And he did it in the most alley way where it was like sort of like this like quiet, polite shithousery too, but it was just amazing.
Yeah, if you got Ali to do that, you really asked for it. And I was almost like hoping he would do it when that ball came, and it was such perfect too. And when he did it, I just started laughing, and I'm like, serves you freaking God. He did not have to make huge saves, but I think, hey, you're a striker. You know that some of those shots are going wide because the goalie is doing a good job of covering the ball.
Yeah, his positioning was great. Yeah, it was great positioning. Yep.
How about Trent? Definitely had like a miserable first half. It felt like.
Yeah, this is a weird one this match in general was a hard one to evaluate just because there was a lot going on and it was a lot to sort out in general. I had Trent at a 7.5. I thought he had some really good moments going forward. Obviously, Gordon caused him a lot of issues, but he caused that entire side issues. He caused Mo issues. He caused Naby issues. I thought Trent did a pretty good job getting back several times from pretty advanced positions. But when we're trying to beat a team that sat back like that I expect Trent to be way up there. So I think some of those things like are just natural that he'd be like trailing back that far. Add him in a 7.5.
Yeah, probably like 6.5 for me. I thought, especially in the first half, his passing and everything was off. A bit better second half, but I think, Gordon did give him a lot of hassle, which made him track back a lot, probably took away from his offensive game as well.
Yeah.
Matip, I have him as an 8. I thought he was really good, and really, when we were struggling, especially at the beginning of the second half, I was like, well, if anybody's going to break this defense down, it's going to be one of those Matip runs. And he did try several times. I have him as an 8.
Yeah, I had him at a 7.5. It's interesting because I thought that he was like brighter going forward in the last couple of games. And I thought Verge was better defensively in the last couple of games. So I had both of them at a 7.5 for very different reasons in this one.
So yeah, Van Dijk at 7.5 too. Yeah, that sounds fair. Actually, I'll go with that because nothing over the top. It's probably not fair to Van Dijk when we do these ratings because his default, we say 6 is average, but it almost feels like his average is already at like a 7 or something like that. But I thought he was solid. There was one ball that I felt like he kind of let go a bit too easy. That was that Decore counter. I think towards the end of the first half that was. Aside from that, I thought he played really well. How about Robo? A rare goal and a header to boot for our boy Robo.
Yeah, so Robo gets a goal, so he's up there towards the top. No, I actually had him at a 9. I thought he was really good throughout. I thought in this game you want that like physical shit hazardry, and I thought he brought that, but I thought he brought it with quality too. Like I thought he was putting balls in good positions. He was like up there in the attack, really helping out. Yeah, I had him at a 9.
I will agree with a 9. I think the goal puts him there. But aside from that, I thought that side functioned a lot better compared to the right-hand side. And you're probably right. It was a lot more physical on that side. So let's get to the midfield. Fabinho, I have him at a 7. I think he's not as effective when we have a team that's playing pretty much, what was that, 5-5 something. I mean, when you going against a formation like that, but he was able to stop most things before it's materialized. So I have him at a 7.
Yeah, I don't know, a 7 too. I know it's different when you've got Thiago and Naby in this lineup versus Hendo and Genie, but like I kind of miss the days when Fab would go further forward and let it rip every once in a while. I feel like he's kind of like he's opted to pass those off onto other midfielders at this point. But just a little throwback nostalgia moment. I miss the days of him letting him rip from 40 yards out.
Yeah, that is odd. I mean, is that you almost expect him to do some of those runs that Matip pulls, but I don't know if that's by design that he kind of creates that extra space for Matip to go up into instead of him doing it himself. But yeah, you're right. I think when you have two creative midfielders, he can kind of like he takes that role of kind of like more like sitting back and becoming a sweeper behind him. So this is going to be probably, I don't know, let me get your take on Keita because I saw some over the top obnoxious takes online, but that's for any day, I guess.
I had Naby at a 6.5, and like I think this is just classic Naby. I think he was the right call for this lineup. In form, like in his current form, he is our third best midfielder. And I think this is probably a good tactical match to play him in. I think with Naby, you're going to get wow moments, and then when it doesn't come off, it's going to look really bad because he's going to cough it up probably in a bad spot. But honestly, so did Thiago today. Thiago got us torched in the first half about 30 minutes in. That could have very easily been a goal. So, I mean, they both did it. One gets talked about and one doesn't. I had him at a 6.5, but that's just because, he had some turnovers and his he wasn't as accurate today with his passing as we've seen in the last couple of matches.
This is what I've been talking about this on the podcast a couple of weeks now. I feel like when Keita is in this role and he feels like he has to open up a defense, his play suffers. He forces things, and I think that's what creates those like turnovers. When he kind of plays within the game, or when we go, I think that's why he's almost better at away games where he can kind of counter press and things like that. But I had him at a 7. I don't think he was as bad as everybody kind of like makes him out to be. And I'm the biggest Keita critic we have probably on the podcast, but I thought it was 7. It wasn't anything like over the top bad. I have the same for Thiago. I think it's the same thing where I think the expectation is very high where you're like, well, you guys are out there. You guys are the ones to open this defense. And when it doesn't happen, I think automatically their grade goes down. But I had Thiago at a 7 as well.
Had him at a 7.5, and I think I gave him just a little bit of an edge in the midfield because, like, I mean, he had 98% like passing rate with almost like with about 120 passes. I mean, I know a lot of it was just us with safe possession, but I mean, that's still those are still pretty strong numbers. But yeah, I think he lacked a little bit. I mean, like, look, this type of match is not the match you want Thiago in, right? I mean, we talked about how this is probably a decent match for Naby. This is not the one that I'd want him in because he's not the guy that you bring to a dogfight. He's like an artist, like he's your nerdy art friend, right? I mean, I think like he operates better in space with time. And I mean, he did some good work, but he coughed it up in some bad areas too.
You think that's kind of like the recipe for taking him slightly out of the game, being kind of like over physical in midfield, which they were?
I think it doesn't matter how physical you are when you have about 20% possession. You know what I mean? Because like that's the thing is you just don't you want it out of his hands, right? It's like you can be as physical as you want. Like imagine De Bruyne was like 30 pounds lighter. You could be as physical as you wanted with him, and if you gave them 80% possession, it wouldn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, BJ says Thiago was 63 of 64 passing, and then in the first half, by the end of full time, pretty much double those, 120 out of 122. I saw a stat where Alan, their midfielder, had 2 completed passes, like 6 attempts, 2 out of 6, and those were out of goal kicks or something like that. I mean, that's just. I think
you got to wonder how well liked he is.
Yeah, you can pretty much like throw those stats out there and be like, yep, there you go. That's game. Let's go up top. Let's start with Jota. I think we talked about this before. Just not big on him on the left, especially in this setup when he didn't have like Bobby next to him. I've seen him we've seen him before along with Bobby, and they were able to almost interchange and like use that space together. But even though they kind of like changed throughout the game, just never got in the game for me. I probably have him as like a 6.
I had him at a 6.5. Yeah, it's strange. He's at his when he's on that left side and he doesn't have Bobby in the lineup, he actually plays better when Rob was on the full overlap ahead of him, which is a weird thing to see. But I mean, because he gets more angles and space in those areas. Like, I don't think he has that top end pace to play up there on the wings. Yeah, I thought he struggled a little bit. I mean, great thing is you can't ever question the work rate. He does a lot coming back, and he did a lot going back and helping out Rabo too, which is, just as important as the rest.
Yeah, I think that side was definitely a lot more physical, like I say, than the right-hand side, like throughout the game. But how about Mo? Came close, almost nailed that one in, and then obviously had the assists going. I am at a 7.5. I think he did a lot of work tracking back again, and he had to on that side. But maybe because Trent was not himself, we just did not get much going from that side.
Yeah, I had him at an 8. I thought he caused them a lot of problems, got the assist, clanked one off the crossbar, like created a lot of like problems down that side all the way through. And I thought it was more of a continuation of an uptick in form for him. I thought it was another really good game where he did a lot defensively too, helping on Gordon. Yeah, I had him at an 8. I thought he was a problem for them. I thought he had a nice match.
How about Sadio? We've kind of like liked him in this middle role, but was it like almost like too crowded for him to be effective?
They were lumping the shit out of him, so I think that was probably part of it. I added a 6.5 for Sadio, just because he wasn't as involved as you want him to be in a lot of those attacks. Any of the goal scoring ones he wasn't involved in, and he picks up that yellow, which was just as ridiculous as the rest of it. But yeah, not his best. 6.5. I still think our best lineup is with him central right now, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, Michael Martin says Bobby would have been suited better in the middle based on how Everton was set up. And I do agree. This was a great game for Bobby because I know they were compact back there, but that's when you need somebody like Bobby to move people around and really test how compact and like how disciplined they are. Arlo, which we'll probably get to the podcast tomorrow. Jesus freaking Christ, that guy. Has he ever even played this game? It just like makes me question a lot of things when he says stuff. But yeah, I mean, he was talking about, like how disciplined they are. I think if you have a guy like Bobby over there, he's the one that's going to test that back line. And we really were not able to do that throughout the game. But so we have the substitutions coming in. Let's pull up the minutes over here. 60 on the dot. Let me ask you this. Your boy Divock comes in and Diaz comes in. If only one of them came in, would it be as effective? Or is it just a combination that Diaz was definitely a lot more threatening on the left? And I mean, Diaz was, and then Divock just brings something totally different in the middle.
I think the answer is they both made an impact. Let me put it this way. If you put Origi in the game, I don't think it has a dynamic effect on how the team plays out. If you put Diaz in, but not Origi, I think it does. I think both of them helped. Like, I think both of them were an improvement but I think the shape change was a part of it. But, and maybe that doesn't happen if you don't have both subs in, but I think that Diaz, fuck me. You have 60 minutes of a dogfight. You see Diaz coming off the bench. Like, no thanks. Like, that's just a lot of legs coming at you. I thought Diaz impacted the match, but I think he has every time he's been in lately.
Let's start with Diaz then. I had him at an 8. The way he brought that ball down by itself should earn him a grade or 2. But aside from that, I felt like that's what changed on the left-hand side is we had a threat of somebody going all the way to the line as opposed to constantly cutting back. We just don't have that with Jota and stuff, and gives a chance for Robo to overlap too. Just that threats that he brings with the speed and agility and stuff like that. I had him at an 8.
I had him at an 8.5, which I think is pretty high for a sub, but I thought that he was that dynamic. I mean, we talked about the flare play, then he bikes in an assist, and I just thought that he just created so many problems because they're terrified that he would beat him off the dribble. But also you have to respect, you have to give him space when he's coming in because he's just a handful to deal with. I had him at 8.5.
So Chris Scott says, I mean, in terms of the Origi substitution, the psychological effects on Pickford, and Michael Martin says Pickford's arms literally got shorter when Origi stepped on the pitch. Do you really take that as I mean, if you ever said a psychological substitution, and in most cases we'd be like, what are you talking about? This has to be in the dictionary under that, because I don't even know if this was against Watford if Divock goes in.
Do I believe that teams can get a psychological lift by subbing in a player and other teams feel that? Yes, I do. I think generally the psychological effects happen the most pregame when lineups are announced. I think it's harder to make that case in the middle of a match. All jokes aside, Divock has had a legendary career full of huge goals versus Everton, right? I just don't see it. I don't see him bringing it that player in and then being it's over now versus just we're shit and it's over. You know what I mean?
It's not a player, Bickler. It's freaking Divock coming in.
Right, exactly. I think that was my point. Yes, I do believe it can happen. No, I don't believe it's Divock. I don't believe Divock does anything for them psychologically.
Really? I almost feel like that is – I'm not saying that's why the goals came and stuff like that, but when you have somebody like that, I don't know, when you play against the same team over and over again and you have a player that always causes you problems, it just makes you uncomfortable as a defender. And all it takes is that lack of focus to see where the hell he's at or what is he doing is sometimes all it takes to create spaces for everybody else. And I do like how he takes – that first goal, the position he takes, I don't know if any of the other guys is taking that position. Because first of all, physically he can and hold somebody back. And I mean, huge impact. What do you give him for a grade? Of all people, I figured you would be overjoyed being the president of the Divock Origi fan club.
Hey, he's on my fantasy team. What more do you want from me?
Are you serious? On
Yeah.
the bench or what?
No, of course. I didn't start him over Kane, which I should have.
Dude, it's Everton. If any game you're going to start him, you're going to
I
start
know.
him.
What was I thinking? Mistakes all over the board, man. No, as much as I joke about Origi, I thought he was an 8.5 too. I thought I don't think he directly impacted the shape of play the way Diaz did, but I think that he did so many good things and positive things when he did come up. And that, like you said, I think a lot of that has to do with where he is positionally in a very different way from a lot of our players that create space. I think he just naturally takes up good goal poaching positions. Like he reads the game very well, and I think that doesn't probably get talked about enough with Divock. But I think spatially he puts himself in good positions a lot in a very similar way that like Jota does, where he is there when the ball rebounds a certain way. He just reads the space well. Very similar, like, I always talk about Dirk Kuyt doing a good job of that when he was at Liverpool. So, yeah, 8.5 for me.
I'll give him a 9 just to get on your case. He should be an easy 9. I think maybe that's one of the things. Like, he's a very smart player, and players like that, when they're on the bench, they can kind of like watch the game and be like know where the spaces are or know what to do and see the tendencies that are out there and stuff. And I think he does that. Probably why he's a better coming off the bench than as a starter. So 2 questions, and I want to ask these to Gally tomorrow as well. But would you like him to stay if it was possible, as like the 5th or I guess the 6th option for the attacking line?
I want what Origi wants. I really do. Like, I'm not trying to skirt.
Traction in Milan is what he wants.
I'm not trying. No, I really do. If he wants to stay, that's fine. I mean, if that's what he really wants, if he wants to stay and he's fine with his role on this team, I'm good with that. But also, like, if he does that, I don't expect him to get game time. Like, this side's only getting better from an attacking standpoint. I mean, with the Fulham kid come in and the young kids were signing and playing a lot. And then I do expect that we might add another attacker this summer, given Bobby's age. And I just like with an occasional cameo appearance in matches. If he's happy with that and we're happy with the wages he's on, I'm good with that. I think he's a total character and I'm fine with that. But if he wants to be playing ball, which I think he probably doesn't really give a shit. If he doesn't want to be playing ball, then I'm fine with us getting what we can for him. And if that's in Milan and that's where he wants, I think Milan, honestly, is a perfect fit for him. His passion, his real hobby and his passion is high fashion. He's in the high fashion capital of the world. I mean, so he can roll out of bed, be late for practice, hang out. Like, it's a much more relaxed, like, pace of play over there. The society in general is more relaxed. And he's going to be in the fashion capital. Like, if that's what he wants, I would genuinely be happy for that too.
I think, yeah, I mean, like Chris Scott says, I think he does deserve to be featured somewhere more often. I mean, he's still young because, he kind of like, rose really early with that World Cup and stuff. And he might be, looking for that, getting some playing time. So he will be going to AC Milan. I mean, pretty much sounds like, I don't think it's all but signed from what I understand. But so what do you think? How many goals does Divock score in Serie A next year?
Oh, man. Is this the next Dominic Solanke? Let's see. I could go I'll go 12.
I was going to say, yeah, we should do this early bet right here. But, yeah, I was going to go 15. I think he will do well there. Because, I mean, he has the speed. He is 27 years old. And, yeah, man, I feel like he has a lot of ability that in some ways, I don't want to say like we didn't utilize it. The dude had some huge goals and the people in front of him, he's just not going to get a chance over them. But, yeah, I think he will do well over there. I would put him at 15. And, yeah, I mean, I will miss the dude. And you can tell – I mean, that interaction they had with Klopp after the game, Klopp rarely gives that big of a hug and then talks that freaking long to somebody. It felt like, it was after the freaking. I mean, the last time he did that to Origi, I think it was the Barcelona game. So it was like that big for him to give that moment to him. But yeah, that dude will be missed, and yeah, he's a legend. Let's get working on that statue right now. 8 minutes to go. Normally, within the last 10, we kind of go with like an NA, but I thought even for those 10 minutes, he made a huge impact. And I think when he came in, it was still 1-0, right? The goal came pretty much, yeah, because he was involved in the goal with the cross. I give Hendo an 8. He just brought something that was needed at the time, some kind of an urgency, like the press became better, like almost like everybody around him gets like it's like a computer game where everyone around him gets like a 10% energy boost rating or something like that. And that's what it felt like. There was like a sequence where they were pressuring them in that right corner there, and I was like, that's just like the Hendo effect.
Yeah, I had him at an 8 too. Yeah, for all the reasons that you said. Here, well, like, listen, let's like address the elephant in the room. In my opinion, there's something seriously wrong with Hendo if he's not starting a physical derby match. Like, and we knew that this was going to be ugly, and we knew that they were going to be physical. And the fact that he wasn't out there to start the match tells me there's something wrong. So I'll be curious to see what this looks like down the stretch here. I know he's aging, and I know he doesn't necessarily have 90 in him anymore, like all the time. But yeah, I'll be curious to see what happens here.
So you think he's like next year's Milner? Or he will be Milner next year, if you will?
I don't think the decline is going to be that rapid, but I think there's obviously and I don't even know if it's age-related yet, but like I think that there's some sort of an injury that he's dealing with right now.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it is a matter of, not being 100%. And it feels like he always gets, like comes in late in these games, but he gets like the brunt of the other team's anger. And he's the one that's, like who gets these like ugly tackles and stuff like that at the end. Because I think when he comes in, he doesn't play like a guy who is avoiding contact or does not want. He almost like is looking for that contact, it feels like. But yeah, I mean, he's by far my favorite player. I know a lot of people like underrate him and stuff like that. But so who do you have? I think I made my man of the match pretty clear, but who do you have as man of the match?
Yeah, so I have Rabo as my man of the match.
Really? I was just going to go with Divock. I mean, how many more times are we going to do these ratings? I will get an opportunity to take Divock as man of the match. So might as well give it to him. So what did we learn today, Vickler? Apart from Everton is shit.
I mean, I think that was it. I think we learned that like Luis Diaz is a pretty good option to have coming off the bench with the other guy that's been a great option off the bench for the last 8 years.
Michael Martin says, I think Hendo is more critical for the Champions League game. And yeah, it will be interesting to see. I think your theory will show itself when we see that 11, right, against Villarreal to see if he's going to be out there, because that is going to be another game. Villarreal is not Atletico, but that whole freaking league over there is pretty much like that for the most part. So it'll be interesting to see. Well, Bickler, we will talk tomorrow with Gally, get his take on this thing, and do the preview for the Champions League. Thanks to all those for listening. See you guys tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central when we do our regular Monday podcast. See you guys then.